Playing it as well as YouTube.
That's why I just turned down the volume down. Can you hear the music?
No.
You don't hear the music?
No.
You hear the music now?
Yeah, but it's not coming, so it doesn't, it's not in the room.
Can you hear the music?
What's up, Christian?
Hey, how you doing?
All right. Good to see you.
Yeah, I can hear you. I just turned.
Good to see you. Mm-hmm.
Recording in progress.
All righty. Oops. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, but you got massive feedback going on.
Yo, Mary, you got to turn your microphone off. Got to mute it.
It's muted.
All right. Is this better?
Yes.
Okay, great. Awesome. Yeah, I picked Over the Rainbow. We have 2 people lost in the big band. First Mike, Ira, and Sam. Well, thanks for showing up.
And you know,
how you doing? How's everyone? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say also going back it's almost 20 years since Wayne Andre died. And when I first joined the band, it was Sam and Wayne Andre were first and second trombone. That was amazing. Both those guys blowing on it was just remarkable.
It must have been, yeah, that must have been before my time. I think I joined in 2006 or 7.
Yeah, Wayne died around 2005-ish, I think. Not quite 20 years. I think it was around there because I was still living in Queens, I remember. So
yeah. What instrument did he play?
Trombone. He
Oh,
amazing trombone.
Sorry.
Yeah, both guys in the same section. It was really great. And very different players, very different soloists, but
yeah.
Wayne was a really sweet guy, and I miss him. He was good.
Well, let's see who we have. Let's introduce everyone. Is it Bob Magnuson? No. Rebecca's here. She's a trombone player. You played once for rehearsal, I think.
Yeah.
Did you play in the band once?
I did, like a couple times here and there at the Union, and I got to play with Sam a lot over the years, and took things from him, and I'm just glad that people are thinking about him. Yeah.
It was a shock to me. I just talked to him just a couple of months before I heard he passed. And then we have, who else is here? Introduce yourself. We have Bruce.
Oh, is my mic on? Is my mic on? I just saw, I saw Rebecca earlier today, and she told me about the Zoom, and I just want to pay tribute to a great man and person and player.
Yeah, I always hope, I realized today Sam always showed up. So this is a big band reunion. We started this one after Mike Longo passed away in 2020. And we have a little channel, and I posted all the Zoom meetings, but Sam was always there. And usually, it ended up in some really great stories. So like sharing stories. And I have a few stories about Sam. I definitely would like to share with you guys. Let me just see here. Then we have Ron. Hey, wow! I hardly recognize you. You lost a lot of weight.
Yeah, it's been a little while. How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good. Hang on a second.
Yes, there's a little feedback. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. You look.
Yeah, man.
You look great.
Thank
so good to see you.
Thank you. It's been some time. Even though I wasn't a member of Mike's band, I had known Sam since probably around 1988, 89. At first, when he came through Texas for this Texas Music Educators Convention. And he and I got to talk shop about trombone and his method book and his thoughts about living in New York. And I found out just how great he was, not only as a player, but as a person. Yeah. And I just wanted to come on and say hi and kind of pay a little tribute to, because Sam was one of the first cats when I came into town about some 13 years ago, who introduced me around to guys and said, you guys, this is Ron, and, he's a great player. You want to hang out and, talk shop, hire him, etc. And I always appreciated his generosity.
Yeah, great. We can just start talking about Sam right away. It was really, I seem to be always not working on March 10th. That was our last big band gig with Mike, and Sam was on it. We played a little YouTube clip, and I was really on the fence a little bit. Like, well, I don't know if we should do it again, but the idea. And then I was pretty shocked when I heard that Sam was passing, I said earlier to Rebecca and Bruce, I think you were already on the meeting. It's like, I talked to him. I was putting this big band together for the APEP meeting of this. It's like a singer. His name is Caesar, and I called him twice for that, but the second time, a couple of months ago, he said, well, I stopped playing, and the thing he had with the being paralyzed halfway on the face came back, and he said, he doesn't have the energy to go through all the practice routine. He said, I stopped playing the trombone. And I was so shocked when I heard that, and I said, wow, and he highly recommended at that point. He said, just call Nick Grinder and he gets your trombone section together. But I was kind of in shock, but he was very laid back about it when I talked to him on the phone. He kind of like, I don't know when you all talked to him for the last time, but he was very laid back about it. Said, yeah, I'm having some issues, but everything is fine. And I said, you fine? He said, yeah, I'm fine with not playing the trombone anymore. I just had it, So I was like, I don't know, something hit me in my stomach, just to hear that from him, So, but there was no indication at that point, that he was leaving us anytime soon. So he still sounded upbeat, and he was exchanging phone numbers and everything. So I have to think about it, but I think it was probably, it was probably a year ago I talked to him the last time. Anyone, I don't know, do you have any contact with him? I mean, when was your last contact with Sam? Anyone talked to him recently? No? Well, the other funny thing about Sam, when I played with like Mike Longo Big Band, I mean, I don't know about you guys. I mean, I don't know. I was new in town, and he was like totally intimidating, just the fact, I mean, he was not intimidating in in a strange way. He was just not, I was the bass player in the band, and he just didn't know me, and I didn't really know him. So we didn't talk really, other than hi and goodbye, for a couple of years. And then I got to know him a little better. And then he was always, in Mike's band, he was always taking care of the trombone section. He was always rehearsing the trombone section. He was rehearsing all the horn players, if something was wrong. I mean, Sam was the first one to wave down the band, say, stop, this is no good. This is a train. Yeah, this is a train wreck, So, and then I was the librarian in the big band, and I started, I was just taking care of the music and pick up the trombone books, It took a while for us to really like talk, and I was kind of like, I didn't really know what to tell him, but it just took a while to really warm up. And then about 10 years ago, I brought him to a summer camp as a teacher, and that's when we really connected, and we were traveling together and really, really connecting. But it took years for me to really build a friendship with him. So I don't know about you guys. I mean, in the trombone sections, it's different, become friends right away. You sit together in the section. But for me, it took a couple of years, and I observed him. I was always a good observer, and I like how he ran the band. And Mike had tremendous respect for Sam. It was really quite something. Dottie got to me. She sent a text, and she said to say hi to you all. And Mike really thought that Sam was the best lead trombone player he ever had in the band. So there was a high respect between Mike and Sam. And another short story I'm going to share, I was ended up for the last couple of years being the guy who puts all the band together, more or less. Sam was in charge of the trombone section, but I was sending out the rehearsal schedule and everything. And he had this email, you all probably know all his emails, Zabutin, and for some reason, sometimes the email wouldn't go through. And I remember one time he found out a few days before the rehearsal that there was a rehearsal and a gig with Mike's band, and he was so upset that he missed the emails, and it's really not a high-paying gig, as you all know, big bands, especially the ones at the Baha'i Center, we never really made a lot of money, but he was so so upset that he missed those emails and they didn't go through. And he called up Mike and he said, I just want to let you know, I mean, I will always be there for you. And it was just amazing for me to observe him, how much respect he had for Mike and the music. And that was a top priority for him, unless he was traveling on the road, you know, but he always wanted to play in that in that big band. So that was something like, I was like, I shared that picture on Facebook. I don't know if you guys saw that, you know, where you see Mike and then Sam in the shadow and then Vinny and Bob. And last night I looked at those pictures and I thought to myself, those are some serious motherfuckers. They're so focused on the music, you know. There was just like, you know, when it came to music, it didn't matter how much a gig paid or something, but especially when they played with people they like to play with, I just looked at the faces, and Sam was always very focused, you know. He had always, I mean, he was just always in the zone, you know. Those are my observations, you know, and the times I spent with him, you know, but very inspiring, I have to say. I mean, I thought about him a lot when he passed, and I thought about all these moments, and it's just inspiring to me, you know. It inspires me to be a better musician, inspires me to when I hear him, how serious he has practiced to get, you know, when he had, how you call that sickness he had? Something palsy at the end?
Bell's palsy. He had
palsy, yeah.
Like a while ago, like 10 years ago, 12 years. He had it a while ago at first. And
yeah, and then it came back a second time, and then he decided not to keep up you know, not to get back because it was too much time for him. But I remember he shared with me how much he practiced and how many hours a day, and I was like, wow, you know, it's just amazing. I find it, for me personally, super inspiring. Anyway, you guys go ahead.
He was like the second in command. In some ways, he was the musical director. I mean, Mike was the director, but Mike was, you know, we all loved Mike, but Mike was not really good at rehearsing a band. He was always, his priority was the rhythm section to get the groove going right. But then he would write all these, you know, fairly difficult parts for everybody, all three sections, all the horn sections that have hard parts. But then he wouldn't really know how to rehearse them. So Sam was the one, you know. Sometimes me too, but really Sam was the one who would, you know, say, Mike, we can't have that, you know, that's not going to fly. And also Sam, in some way, both Sam and I were the ones that Mike would turn to remember how some chart we hadn't played in 6 or 7 years, what the arrangement was, because you couldn't know yourself in the parts. But we remembered, oh yeah, we did this, and this is written there because this is what we did, and you know, Sam was always good at, you know, at that kind of memory. Having been there, he was there from the beginning. The band formed in '98, and he was from the start. He was there.
What drove me crazy on a gig, sometimes Mike would turn around and we had a song on the set list and the audience was there, and then Mike would say, how does the song go again?
It's true.
Yeah.
He would forget what the feel was.
Yeah.
I was kind of wondering, does anyone know if there's like a complete list of like all the, or like, obviously not all the bands he's played with. I don't think that would be possible, but like, is there like a list somewhere of where all his like stuff is? And...
like Jazz discography, that's a pay database, but you can enter Sam's name and see what crops up. I mean, I was always, whenever I talked to him, I was always going away by the people he would just casually mention that he played with. Like he, at some point, he played with Carla Bley, but I've always been trying to figure out, was that a record or was it just a live thing, or you know? And he all the Fania stuff he did, and really such a hugely diverse player, and came up in an era when like he played everything. You know, the guys like him just were involved in so many different kinds of music. It's you know, guy in the right place at the right time. You know.
Yeah, I was always fascinated by his relationship with Jimmy Knepper. When I went over there, he talked a lot about that. But it was also interesting, like, because when I would take lessons with him, he wouldn't play duets with people, which I thought was like really interesting. But it also sounded like something that he kind of inherited from Jimmy Nepper, he also like wouldn't do that either. And I guess he would like go over to his place, and Jimmy was kind of a hermit of sorts. And I don't know, I just found that all of that to be really fascinating. And I'm like kicking myself that I didn't talk to him even more about it, because, you know, wow, Jimmy and Sam, two of the best, like in my opinion, two of my favorite.
So Rebecca, you study with Sam? You took
A
lessons
little
from him?
bit. Yeah. I took a few, and he gave me his book, and it was like when I first moved to the city, and he was like, "Oh, don't pay me anything for it. Like, if you ever find it useful in the future, and you're like making a bunch of money, you know, whatever." But I still haven't like delved in it completely, because it's like this thick. You probably haven't seen it because, you know, you're not a trombone player. Have you seen this book, Bruce?
I
Crazy.
heard it. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like this thick, but it's like, I mean, you guys knew the way that he would like write to explain stuff sometimes, like even on social media, it was just like his book like was exactly his head to paper. And if you ever had like a detailed question about trombone, it got so, it was, I hate to say long-winded, because it like wasn't, because every bit was necessary and pertinent and wisdom, but it was just like an anthology, total anthology.
Yeah, I didn't know till I traveled with him to Canada. I brought him to, there's a lady running a great jazz program in Nanaimo on Victoria Island in Canada. And I brought him with me one time. And then he's like, "Are we going to Vancouver?" I said, "Yeah." You know, so, "Man, there's a guy I know." And then I think we ended up doing a workshop. He ended up doing a workshop in Vancouver. But I didn't know till that trip that he had a strong online presence. And a lot was based on that book. And there was like forums, and he would go and talk about everything about having to do with brass and trombone. And even that, you know, I did a summer camp in Alaska for many years, and the guy who was leading it is a trombone player. You know, he heard Sam Burtis. I brought him also to Alaska one time for a summer camp, and he's like, "Wow, is that, you know, the guy with the big book?" And you know, it's like he had quite a reputation about that book and these online forums. And it wasn't not till we actually traveled on this trip together, he said, "Yeah, I'm spending a lot of time on the internet." And he was very dedicated about educating people about brass instruments. So, and I haven't seen the book yet.
He also mentioned that he was big in, I don't know what the brass societies are, the conferences. Is there some like brass conference or brass, you know, society of trombone players or something like that? He mentioned he was doing, you know, appearances at these conferences and doing master classes and stuff for students from all over the country and stuff. I always wondered what meeting that was. I don't know if it was a general brass conference or particularly trombone.
He was working through the International Trombone Association.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
His book came out, as well as, of course, you know, the discography of Sam. He would become a lecturer for these yearly conventions that we would have, where it was a gathering of trombonists. And Sam's knowledge, insights, and of course, getting to play on the occasional Friday night jazz concert. Most of the time, they were working on more classical repertoire and concepts, among other things. But Sam always had just brilliant insights at each one of the festivals. I knew that in part just because I knew a lot of guys who attended. I went and saw him, I think, at one in Kalamazoo, Michigan, back around '88. But aside from that, I just knew that he was a known guy. He was an author, and he was a learned cat, and he had also, like Becca was saying, he played with Jimmy Nepper, which was another, you know, huge influence in my jazz circle as well.
Great. Well, I want to. I think you want to just go ahead.
We have Dave Chamberlin with us.
Hey, Bruce.
Howdy.
How you doing, Dave?
I'm doing fine. Happy to be here.
I thought about you today. I was wondering how many times did Sam sub in or played in the Band of Bones?
several times, and you know, it's hard for me to talk. I've known Sam since about 1968 or 69, and we've been through many things, and he's both a friend and a mentor to me. He was really who got me started playing trombone in the New York scene. So when I met him, we were playing together in Bill Dixon's band, the composer and trumpet player Bill Dixon. I was playing flute and he was playing tuba, mostly tuba and some trombone.
Wow.
And so we became friends. And then after a little bit of time, I started getting calls to do trombone gigs, but I was so out of shape about not having played for a few years. So I went to him and he set me up with a few lessons, got started, and recommended me a few places, and that just got me started. So that was how many years ago? Over 50, right?
Wow.
Yeah. And then, of course, through all those years, we crossed paths many times. And he's the one that got me into Mike's band.
Yeah, he was in charge of the trombone section. I mean, the last 10 years when I was doing the personnel for the big band, I would just say, Sam, you get the trombones. Brian Davis, who said, a couple of people saying hi. Brian Davis had a gig tonight, so he's as you all know, he's a great lead trumpet player. I would say, Brian, you get the trumpets. So, and then Bob Magnuson would get the saxophones, and then at the end, I got the saxophones. And but Sam was always the guy who took care of the trombone players.
Mm-hmm.
So it was always good when he was on the gig, because when he wasn't, then then you had to find a trombone player and had to figure out, who can do the.
He always had some great young person every once in a while. He'd always look out for young players and bring them.
That wasn't me.
Well, Dave, I wanted to say, when I think about people who are really passionate about trombone and are actually like making a tangible effort to like help young players and get the trombone more publicly, that's Sam Burtis and Dave Chamberlin. Like, those are two of the names that would pop off right off the top of my head. And so, I feel like you're talking about Sam, how he helped you. And it's just like, it's cool that he did that for you. And then you've done that for so many other people. And, appreciate you and appreciate Sam. And I'm glad to see
forward.
You. Yeah, exactly. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Aren't you the trombone guy, Dave?
That's what you used to say. But who believes you?
What? No, there was some guy wasn't there a new person in town that said, "Oh, Dave Chamberlain, oh, you're the trombone guy." I thought that.
Maybe so. I don't know.
Yeah.
We got new guys coming in all the time.
Yeah, Dave, before you got on the call, I was remembering that that the other great trombone player, really classic trombone player we had in Mike's band was Wayne Andre, who was there for the first up until he died. I can't remember what year it was that he died, but I remember that for a while it was Sam and him were the two soloists, and it was incredible because they were two very different soloists, different sounds, different approach, but both like, I would sit in front of the bone. I was playing Barry sax in the band, and it was hearing those guys together was such a treat every gig, to hear these two master guys behind me in the trombone section.
For sure.
And they're both really great guys. Wayne was a really sweet guy too.
I just realized those trombone players, mate, they're playing right in your ear, right? They're sitting right behind you. Yeah, that's amazing.
Like, really, it was the bass trombone that's right in my ear, which I wanted to be in my ear because our parts are so. With Mike, the bass trombone and baritone sax were often in like lockstep, but I would hear everybody else sort of obliquely to my right, like not directly in my ear, but because having Sam right behind you, that'd be a handful to have in your ear. What a huge sound he had! It was just thick and fat and beautiful. Wayne was more like a thinner sound, a more delicate sound, but still is great to hear those two guys together. And then after Wayne died, Sam took over. I think Wayne might have been playing lead first, and then when Wayne died, Sam moved up to lead, and he was playing all the parts that Wayne had. But it took a while to get used to, because I was like, every time he played those parts, I was like, it sounded great, but it wasn't Wayne, and I was just missing, because Wayne was really nice to me. He had me play on he had a rehearsal band too, and so. But yeah, to have both those guys are gone is hard to take.
Yeah. One thing about Sam, I always remember in the big band, when I look at the YouTube videos, also he played he was pretty essential in the funk band too, because Mike Longo had this funk band, if you haven't heard it, and it's a 3-horn band with a trombone, tenor, and trumpet. But there was no real trombone book, so Sam was the one who put the book together. He had the trumpet part, the tenor part, and he would just figure out what works best for each song. And sometimes there was a chart, and other times he had to improvise it. So whenever someone was subbing for Sam in that band, it was really hard for those guys because they didn't really know what he was doing. But I do remember when I look at Sam, one thing I always remember is it's on the picture on Facebook too. Like there's something about his sound and his projection. He gets up, and the way he stands, and then the way he aims his trombone, I always felt, when I see it and I hear it, it's like there's something, the sound really projects forward, and I don't know too much about trombone. I love all trombone players. I mean, we are the lover of the low notes. I play the upright bass, and we read from the same key. But there was something, in the beginning, you just come to town and everyone says how great someone is, but then you have to find out yourself what you like about that guy. If one thing, sometimes everyone says the guy is so great, and you're like, well, it takes you a while to figure out, especially if it's not your instrument, what's great about the guy. And the longer I know Sam, I just noticed that his sounds project into the room, like really straightforward, and just the way he would stand. And I like that about that picture. That picture I posted on Facebook was taken by Chris Drucker. This was a picture in trumpets, when trumpets was still around. And it's just the way, it's his posture, it's just like, I don't know, it just speaks so much in terms of, his seriousness about, the instrument. Anyway.
And you can also see that in all the videos of the band. You can see, Sam standing up and just blowing straight out, and a very hugely projecting sound. He has no problem being heard over that band, especially in that room, because that room is so loud. There was nowhere for the sound to go. It was all so concentrated, and he had no problem hearing Sam at all. Cuts right through.
Yeah, no, he was big in Latin, and I think Bruce and David, Ron, and Rebecca, you probably heard Sam in Latin bands. That's the only thing I really miss out on. I think at some point, if I have a little more time, I'm gonna do branching out on YouTube and find some Latin stuff Sam is doing. But I know he was big into Latin music. You guys probably did you play Latin gigs with him? He talked about it quite a bit. Some of the guys he worked with, but I never really experienced him in those Latin bands. I forgot the names too. I have to look it up. But I do know that was a big thing because he talked about it a lot.
Well, he played for many years with Tito Puente.
Oh, yes.
and after Tito died, some of the mainstays in the band put together a group called the Mambo Legends Orchestra. And Sam was in that, and once again he got me in, so that I played with him many times in that group. And I think the power of his sound comes from playing the Latin music, and not always having a mic. So if you want to be heard, then you got to really do it.
Yeah. Well, I go ahead, guys. I have a few more stories. I thought about Sam a lot. Everyone remember when he had the accident on the Bronx Expressway? Did you guys talk to you about it? He was on the way to a gig, and someone rear-ended him on the Bronx Expressway. And the miracle about that story is he still made it to the airport somehow. And I don't know how you made it to the airport. And I'm like, what happened to your car? How did it all work? It's like, well, you know, a guy came and he explained it to me, but it's like, in my mind, it's like, you're on your way to a gig on the Bronx Expressway, which is like one of the busiest streets, right? I mean, early in the morning, I don't know, but, you know, and I don't know what airport he was going to. Was it JFK or Newark? I don't think he was on his way to LaGuardia, but I remember, you know, he got rear-ended and the car was totaled, and he still made it to the airport. And then he treated himself. He bought a Volkswagen, the Golf, you know, this little sports car. And I remember he came on the rehearsal and he said, I always wanted that car, you know, and working long enough and working hard enough. So that was a treat for him to buying this brand new car. And I will never forget that story. And he was so calm talking about it too, you know, when that happened. I mean, it must have been, I don't know if it happened just that day or the day before. It was very recent when he mentioned that story. Anyone heard that story from him? You know, with the car accident he had? I don't know, maybe I'm the only one, but I'm just, you know, someone who is here in New York. I mean, I've been here for like 20 years or something, but when I go home from a gig, sometimes I feel like I just arrived in New York. It's like when you talk to someone like Sam or some of you guys, you know, it's like, you know, I'm like, there's always deep in my heart and my tummy is always a deep appreciation to be in this town for so long, you know, and like all the different ups and downs you have to go through. And the Bronx Expressway, I mean, I'm very intimidated. Although, you know, from Germany, I know how to drive the Autobahn, you know, but the thing is, you know, some of these streets here, you know, they don't have a shoulder, you know, and the AAA is not always showing up right away. So, and he was on the middle lane, as far as I remember, you know, he was on the middle lane, got rear-ended, and there he was, you know, and I was like, wow, man. And he still made it, and he was really proud. He still made it in time for his airline flight and everything. And you know, and then after that, he bought himself that new car. But I will always remember that story. I was just totally blown away by that, you know, in many ways. Yeah. Yeah. Well,
one of the things about Sam's playing is that he was an outstanding lead player as well as a soloist. And a lot of times the lead player has the responsibility of laying down all the high parts. And so they sometimes don't play as many solos. And maybe the second or the third player who doesn't have as strenuous a part to play will save their chops for the solos. But Sam was a monster.
Did it all.
He would play lead all night, loud, strong, and take all the solos, and it was amazing, you know. And do you know that he started off as a tuba player?
I didn't know that. Yeah,
but I just heard college. Yeah. He went to Ithaca College as a tuba major, and it was while he was in college that he started getting interested in jazz, and he saw, you know, the opening for trombone in jazz. So that's when he started playing trombone. And then he transferred over to Berkeley. And from there was mainly a trombone player.
That's great.
Yeah, I was just playing with the Mingus band a couple of weeks ago, and his name is still on that tuba part for Monin. Tuba, Sam Burtis.
Yeah. Well, he was the director of the Mingus band way back when it first started.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, next time, Rebecca, you mind taking a picture of that? I would love to see that.
I do have a picture of it. I posted it as like a story, but so it's on my phone. I'll send it to you. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, okay. Great. Yeah, I would love to see that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I don't know. That's it was a little strange. I don't know how did you guys, when you find out, Sam, how did you find out? I mean, for me, I don't even know how I found out. I thought I have to think about that one, but I I know I was took me, totally by surprise, when I found out he passed away.
Somebody on Facebook mentioned, I can't remember if I found out through Dottie or through Magnuson or somebody had shared that it was a posting that somebody else had shared.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a sad day.
Yeah, but he
Yeah.
had a tough time for about 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
He had a second bout with Bell's palsy, which he wasn't able to come out of. And then he kind of resigned himself to not being able to play anymore. And then he had open heart surgery.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh,
Wow.
he had some kind of arthroscopic surgery done, which didn't work. So then he had to have a full open heart surgery, and he was recovering from that, and exercising and starting to feel better and everything. And then I hadn't talked to him for maybe a month or two, and that's when I found out that he had passed. So it was something either in addition or something different that happened. Steve Dannenberg, he had been in touch with him more often.
Mm.
How many kids did he have? I know he had a son.
Yeah.
No, I only know about the son. He teaches at Cornell. And he's an expert in tick bites.
Tick bites.
Wow.
That's his field of study, And apparently he's like an authority on that.
I don't remember. I think I shared that story on Facebook, but when I brought him to Canada, to Nanaimo, to that jazz program there, he talked a lot about his son. I mean, he talked a lot about his son, and I know he was really proud of him. And I will never forget, on the way back, so you had to take a ferry so there are two ways to get the ferry to Nanaimo. You can take, you go to Vancouver, you go to Savason, and you go over to, I think they call it Duke Bay. And then it's another 20 minutes to Nanaimo. The other one, you can go to north of Vancouver to a bay called Horseshoe Bay. And that ferry gets you in north of Nanaimo. I remember we took the ferry back, and it was a nice sunny day. There was not one cloud in the sky. And he was sitting right in front, where the windows are, and he was just like, he was in bliss. And I saw he was totally enjoying the view. And so I didn't bother him too much, but he said after that ferry ride, he said, man, I want my son to come up here. I want him to see this, and I love the mountains. And I also brought him to Alaska, and he said the same thing about the mountains. But that ferry ride, he was just like, he was quiet. He was not talking, the trombone was right here or somewhere to the side, and he was just sitting there. I know, you all know how he sits on his chair, and he was just like taking it all in, and I was just like, wow, it's just one of those moments. It just strikes me. I mean, you hang out with musicians a lot, but it just was beautiful to see him enjoy the environment that much, and it really moved him, and I remember when he came back, he told me he had a really great time on this trip and everything. But I've been up there a lot, and I'm still doing things in Alaska, so I love it, but I just I was just beautiful to see how it struck him, when he saw all the surrounding. Anyway, in my mind, I just see him sitting on that bench, and he was just like, wow, it was great. Yeah, Jim, thanks for coming. Joe, sorry, thanks for coming by to the meeting, to the memorial, to the big band reunion. Yeah, the big band hasn't really played since 2020, and Sam actually attempted at some time to get the band up and running again. So
when?
I don't know. you got to go through those meetings. I think it was he shared his story on the second meeting. I think it was in 2022.
There was one.
Well,
that-
he just, he just, he was asking around a little bit, but I don't know. We haven't really. I don't know. Frank Porowski called me, and he's trying to get the band. He's mentioned August 18 to do a memorial concert for at Birdland for Mike and Sam. He wanted to do something for both of them together. So yeah, that so any of you trombone players, you should reach out to to Frank Porowski. If I don't know, he just called me a couple of days ago. He saw my post about this big band reunion, and then he called me and he said, "Oh, I saw your post, and I was thinking about the same thing, and I want to put a big band concert together." And he was so surprised because he called Birdland, and they got back to him right away. I think for a Sunday brunch or something like that, they gave him. I think it's like a 5 p.m. concert, and they said, "Oh, they got back to me right away." And so I know we have that date, but if I'm not in charge anymore, but I would think if anyone knows Ben Porowski, just reach out to him and see if you don't have a gig on August 18 yet, if you want to be part of the band, Yeah.
Plenty of days with no gigs.
Yeah.
I have to take a call, but thank you so much for doing this. And
Oh, you're
I'll
welcome, Rebecca.
keep us posted. I would love to just even attend that at Birdland when that happens. You said August 18th. I'll keep an eye out.
August
for that.
18th, yeah.
So anyway, bye everyone. Take
Yeah,
care.
thank you, Rebecca.
Bye,
Thank you
Becca.
for coming
Bye.
by.
Where are all the other
Yeah.
cats? Where are all the other cats in the band, man? Nobody wanted to.
So Ray apologized. He's busy. He would have loved to come on. He gave the link to Daryl Pellegrini, who played with the band with you when you started. I remember Daryl, like, I came into the band, everyone said, "Oh, he's going to Hawaii," and then Ray Machika's going to be the drummer. But I ran into a few times, and who else? Brian Davis says hi. He was busy tonight, and he says say hi to the cats. And I think Dave, yeah. So Dottie Longo, she had a dinner invitation in New Jersey, but she said tell the guys that hello, sending her love, and Mike really thought the word of Sam. He said that was the best lead trombone player for him ever. And so she said to pass that on to you guys. And yeah, so we're sharing a few stories of the rehearsal earlier in the beginning. But yeah, if you guys have some other stories about Sam, I pretty much shared most of my Sam stories, which don't have too much to do with playing. It's more like an interactions we had with him. I had with him. I really remember very clearly. But if you have anything, but Dave, yeah, you joined a little later. But there was a great high mutual respect between Mike and Sam, and which took me by surprise. I mean, I was just. I don't know if you all know that, but I was studying with Mike for 17, 18 years, a very long time, and then I was just happy to play in the big band. And I know everyone in the big band was great. And then it took many years to really get to know the people and everything. But one incident I shared earlier before you came on, Dave, was that, one time, you remember Sam's email, right? Sabutin, yeah. I forgot the number, but for some reason he didn't always get the emails. And this one particular time, he got an email about a rehearsal and a gig, and he didn't get it till a few days. And he called me, he was all upset. How come I didn't get that email? He called Mike, he's like, man, how come I didn't get the email? And he was so upset that he didn't get the email. And that I think he ended up doing the gig, but I remember him on the rehearsal saying, Mike, I just want you to know, whenever you have a gig, I'm going to be there. I was just so taken by by the stand he took and just being so vocal about it. And like, there's nothing I could do about it. I mean, I looked at the email I sent. It said send, you know, and I don't know why he didn't get it. But there was a very, very mutual respect. And before you joined us, Dave, also, you know, Sam was very essential for the Mike Longo Big Band. You know, Mike was, you know, he was sometimes get carried away in a groove or something. He was not always having his attention on the horn section, but Sam was the guy who would wave down the band and when there's a train wreck about to happen, you know, and just straighten us all out, you know.
Or already happened.
Say what?
Or had already happened, and Mike.
Wouldn't he whistle? He was whistling, right? Or is it just my imagination?
You know.
Yeah.
That was awful. We can't have that. No matter which section it was, it could have been trumpet section sounded bad, it could have been trombones, it could have been saxophone, it could have been everybody. He just would not take. You know, in some ways, I think some people just let Mike, you know, some guys just figure, oh, I guess Mike is okay with that, you know. But I think Sam knew that Mike wasn't, but that he sensed that Mike was not, somehow or other, Mike lacked the instinct of a person who rehearses a band, to have his antenna up for every little thing. And if you're a section leader, then you do have your antenna up for every little thing. So that's why he was the guy to do that. You know?
Yeah.
One thing that I want to say about Sam is it may be because I studied with him, or maybe he's like this with other players, and you know, with Bruce and Ron, you can maybe you had the same reaction, but he had a way. He always made me feel like $1,000,000. No matter how I was playing, no matter what I was trying to do, you know, whether I was struggling or whether I was actually okay, you know, he always had like the right thing to say, you know, to like lift me up. And there were times when I knew, I'm really fucking this up, you know, but he would have something else nice to say, you know, like, you know, don't get down. You got this going on. You got this, you know, and there's very few people that are like that. You know, the music scene is like, sometimes you get a compliment here or there, or sometimes you don't. But Sam was I always felt he was in my corner, and you know, it's just a shame there aren't more people like that, at least for me, you know. But I wonder how did the other trombone players who were here get a feeling of that he was like that for them, or is it mainly because he saw me as one of his students?
Well, for me, I really had very little contact with him. I only had one, I think, a historical brass society performance, maybe a one rehearsal and a performance. And I drove him home up to Riverdale, and that time in the car was really the only time I ever spent with him. Just the one time. I knew his name. Of course, he's been famous. I knew of him before I ever moved to New York, which was, I don't know, 40 years ago. But I just never met him. I think I did one. I'm pretty sure I did one Mingus rehearsal for Art Barron, and Sam was there, but we really didn't. There wasn't too much. Yeah, so I really don't know too much about him, and I knew that Dave was very close with him, and you had told me that he was sick, and you know, I was just sorry to hear. I knew he. I don't know if I say, or Rebecca, didn't you like the word long-winded? And I was going to say pontificates. You know, I think he, especially when it comes to trombone, I'd always hear that he'd chime in and give his opinion about stuff. And but personally, I just because I'm not on social media and I don't know, you know, I wasn't part of all these trombone forums, but I heard that he was very active and just like to spread his knowledge to people. And like other people have said, the way he helps out people, especially younger players. And Anyway, and we had a couple things in common that we talked about, but basically it wasn't, I don't know, I didn't know him very well, honestly. So.
Well, on my end of it, I'll do a little bit. You know, we did a few gigs together. We got to get a chance to play with different bands and such. So I got to witness Sam and his lead trombone playing firsthand, and got more than my fair share of an earful just on literally 2 gigs with him. But in the times that we talked trombone, because we would geek out a bit on it, I always found him to be the most knowledgeable guy, and there was literally no question that I could come up with that he couldn't at least find an answer to, or at least know of someone who may have the answer. I just thought that was so awesome that he was so willing to share his knowledge. And Christian, to piggyback off what you were saying earlier about Sam and his accident,
Yeah.
one of the gigs that I played with him, he picked me up in that VW Golf GTI that he had, which is also a favorite of mine.
Yeah.
So I was you know, for one, I'm hanging out with Sam anyway, so it's always a blast. But I was geeked out so hard with him in that car.
Uh-huh.
I mean, we were just like, hey, can you take this curve a little bit harder? Oh, you mean this one? You know. But you know, I just always enjoyed my time with him, whether just discussing about life, living, and the pursuit of how to keep your face on. I remember at one point I was going through some issues with my embouchure where I was working on these buzzing exercises, and I talked to Sam about it. I wanted to get his insights as far as what he thought about the embouchure and such, and to, for lack of a better way of pontificating or elaborating a lot. About an hour, 15 minutes went by where we just got into the whole depths of how this is shaped and how this works, and everything from the air to the chops to various methods or historical items that he had found out, or insights that he had gotten from other players on other brass instruments that he just shared with me. And I was, you know, what it came down to was that I just really appreciated the fact that he took that much time and that much effort, not only into getting the knowledge behind it himself, but then to be able to share it the way he did. And, you know, of course, you know, I'd kind of get a little jazz geeked as well, just because I'm hanging out in the car with this guy and I've heard him play on so many recordings. In particular, going back to what Dave was saying about when he was with Tito Puente. I think one of the earlier Tito albums I heard had Sam playing trombone on. And it was just phenomenal playing, just incredible, great sound, great chops, and just really in the style, the genre, or the pocket. I just dug the hell out of it, and then getting a chance to meet him, you know, a few years later, and consider him a friend and a wise consult. It made a big difference. So that's for the most part with me. I'm glad I had a chance to meet him and to play with him, which was a great experience in of itself. But also, I'm looking at the clock. I've got to get going too, because I've got some early stuff coming up.
Well, thanks, Ron. One quick question before you leave, though, for the trombone players. I just want because I'm part of the rhythm section, you know, and especially with the Mike Longo Big Band. Mm-hmm. Being a student of Mike, you know, on certain gigs, you know, I'm like, I don't want to go to my next lesson once he listens to the recording. But I wonder how was Sam as a section leader? I mean, I really have no experience. You know, I grew up classical. In Holland, I played in a bass section, you know, but my section leader never really, you know, they give us advice how to, you know, up bow, down bow, certain things, you know, there was just like that, you know, but they never gave us advice, maybe phrasing a little bit, but how was Sam as a section leader? I mean, if you ever played with him in a section, what was his guidance? He would give the guy, I'm just curious, he would give his guidance by the way he plays it, and you just follow him, like listening, or how would he vocally say something? I mean, was it like just unspoken, or you know, how would you be as a section leader? I mean, I'm just curious. What any stories, any experiences, any moments you remember where he actually, you know, acted up as a section leader and said, "This is how we're going to do it," or something like that?
Well, I played with him a bunch of times, and and he didn't really talk that much. You know, everybody talks about him. He's like the guru, the trombone guru, who has all this advice and all this stuff to say online. But when you're in the band, you know, he didn't talk that much. He just laid it down, and he was so strong that you had to go with him. And I guess I was lucky enough that he thought I was going with him, that he didn't have to knock me down too much, you know. And I was never really around him when somebody was screwing up, you know, that he needed to, you know, come down with some criticism. And it was mainly he was just so strong, and as a trombone player, as a musician, as a, you know, somebody who knows the style, that you just kind of went with him. You know, it's like when anybody who has kids or little kids, you know, when you take like a 2 or 3 year old for a walk and you hold their hand, they just go with you, you know, and it was kind of like that with playing with him. You know, he was just, he was there, and it was like if you didn't follow him, there was like a vacuum. You got sucked right into it, and he didn't really talk that much about how to play a tune. You know, I mean, the only talking would be to you know, let you know where the repeats were. Here's a DS, and you know, that kind of roadmap stuff. So it was all, for me anyway, it was just the musical example.
The bone section was always more dependable in some ways than the sax section. For a few years.
Would you say that again? I didn't quite hear that.
There were times when I felt in the sax section like we relied on, and sometimes the sax section didn't feel as solid as sometimes as the trombone section did, and so even though the sections were often played off against each other, and so there were parts where I kind of depended on the trombone section to have a certain cue to have us come in on time together, and I couldn't. This is kind of airing dirty laundry, but there was a period in the history of the band where the sax section wasn't as solid as it really should have been, and so I found myself depending on the trombone section, meaning depending on Sam, because the trombone section was always so completely on, and you're right, he would lead as a lead player, he leads the whole section. But I also overheard him telling guys in the section, oh, we're going to phrase this like this, or we're going to, you know, use whatever mute here or something. And he didn't happen that often. I would overhear it, especially if there were guys who were subbing on the concert who weren't at the rehearsal. He was good at giving a good capsule training session before the gig started and getting everybody on the same page. And then, yeah, he wasn't just a rock for the bone section. He could be a rock for the other sections too. If you have one section that's so dependable like that, then other sections can come to sort of rely on that too.
So it's interesting. So you could say it's nonverbal communication. Basically, he leads by example, right? So the way he plays and the way he phrases and everything, and just. Yeah, kind of makes sense, but I'm just curious. I would love to sit.
As any lead player does, you know, lead player of a section is supposed to do that, as opposed to just set the is usually playing melody. If at least in the sax section or the trumpet section, the lead player is playing melody, but they're also guiding the phrasing for the rest of the section. In Sam's case, it was so good that I was depending on that section being there. You know?
Yeah, before Ron takes off, I just want to say, so Mike was very hard on the saxophones, though. I mean, some of those saxophone lines, he would give them like, I mean, I saw some of those parts. I don't even know how you read that guy. I mean, you know, I just, you know,
he was something that I was calling it out. You know, I for a long time I was like the youngest guy in the band, and I always felt like I knew stuff wasn't right, but I felt like I didn't have the confidence. But he didn't have no fear with him. You know, he was always ready to say when something wasn't happening, and I was glad to have that there.
Yeah.
Well, I'm myself. I'm sorry I have to leave, but I got to put my kid to bed. So.
All right.
Yeah, I'm out too. Take care, guys.
Okay, Joe, are you on? Thank you so much for coming by. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Becca, for letting me know.
Thank you. Yeah. Yes. Oh, Joe. Yeah, I want to talk to you for a second. Are you going to take off too? Oh, bye, Bruce.
Bye.
Bye, Bruce.
Oh, Joe, is your mic on? No, I don't hear you.
I'm not gone yet.
Oh, no, that's Bruce.
I
No, but
thought I
Joe,
was gone.
yeah. But Joe, is your mic on? I didn't hear you. Is your mic on or not?
It should be on, but let me check.
Or maybe turn up the volume a little bit. Yeah, no, I thanks for coming by. I mean, I let the other guys talk, you know. You know Joe, Dave? Joe's a piano player. He was, we just had a gig up in Peekskill. We were doing Mike Longo's funk band, and Joe was the
Yes,
piano
yeah.
player.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, Joe was the piano player.
At
Oh, I
the
figure,
Bean
you
Runner,
know,
right?
at the Bean Runner, that's
Yeah.
right.
Doesn't Dottie live in Peekskill?
Yes, she
Yeah.
does. And she came and she did a little talk. You know, she talked about 10, 15 minutes. She talked about, she says hello, by the way. I think I said it once or twice.
Good.
You know, she sends her love. And again, she said to pass on from Mike that Mike thought, you know, let me read you the text, what she really said. I kind of did it by memory, but where is she? Unfortunately, I won't be able to pop into the reunion tonight. I'm in New Jersey. Please give my love to everybody. And Mike said that Sam was the best lead trombone player. She wrote trumpet. No, trombone player. Spell check ever. So anyway, that's what she said to pass on from Mike. But so Joe was subbing, you know, in Mike's place in the funk band, and I did want to say thanks for coming to the meeting tonight and to the big band reunion. And I know Matt Snyder had to leave, you know, but I thought maybe we can talk about the big band a little bit. But anyway, you know, I'm so happy you coming by, Dave. I thought about you today, and then, you know, when I put these posts together, I'm like, sometimes I'm like trying to remember everyone I know, you know, and I know I'm leaving people out, so that's when I put in the post. If I forget anyone, forgive me, you know, just pass it on, you know. So
Well, I just saw your post on Facebook.
oh, great.
For all the negative things that we have to say about Facebook, you know, that's one way that we can be in touch. And so
Yeah.
I didn't, you know, I see your post every so often. And
Oh,
this
thank
time,
you.
when I saw the picture of Sam, then
Which one did you see the one with the pointer?
Yes, yeah.
That was so funny last night. A friend of mine is building a bass guitar for me in Germany, and I have this logo which I put together when I was 18. I had this really old laptop, and I've been moving around. I tell you, I have no idea how that picture found me, but suddenly, boom, there was Sam with his pointer. I'm like, I mean, the universe couldn't be more in your face than with that picture, you know.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I was in touch with Jane a little bit, and I know it was his you know, partner for many years, you know. So I didn't feel comfortable taking that picture. It's kind of a bold picture, you know. It's like, but it's, to me, I was very personal. So I'm like, you know, I thought I heard him say, "You better come to the meeting tomorrow," you know. You know, it's like, you know, it's like I have to post it. So I put it in an email I put together, and I put it up on Facebook. But
What is that the poster that says Uncle Sam wants you?
Well, I think he meant for you to be there. I mean, you guys were so close. I think it was meant for you to see that, you know.
Well,
and
I came to New York in 1966, so I met him very soon after I got here, and you know, I've been in touch with people that I went to high school with and all that, but out of the musicians that I've come to know in New York, you know, he was really my oldest friend, and you meet a lot of people and then you lose touch, but he and I stayed in touch over all the years.
Mm-hmm. Great. That's awesome. Those friendships, it's amazing. How was coming to New York in 1964? I mean, 65, 66. How?
66.
Yeah. Where did you come from? Where did you come from?
I'm from Buffalo.
Buffalo.
I've lived in New York State, but you know, my whole life. But the idea is New York is the place to be. And so it was
And-
exciting.
And how did you run into Sam on a gig? I mean, maybe you
we were both in the same in the Bill Dixon band.
okay.
We used to rehearse down on the Lower East Side. Both of us lived in the Lower East Side, and
Mhm.
so, you know, after we first met in that band, then we realized we were neighbors. So sometimes we'd run into each other in the neighborhood as well, you know.
Mhm.
But it was a totally different time because there was so much music happening, so many different styles of music. You know, the pop music scene didn't have the world, you know, by the throat like it does now.
Yeah, unbelievable.
And there were so many different you could play with a different style of music, a different band every night of the week,
Mhm.
you know, and learn all the different kinds of musics there were. And as a trombone player, you know, the role of the instrument is different depending on what kind of music you're playing.
Mhm.
So it was an exciting time.
So, quick question: how much was rent in those days, and how much did gigs pay, in average?
Well, my first apartment was $50 a month.
Whoa!
And I remember the standard rate for the gigs I was doing was $25.
Wow.
And that it wasn't, you know, we didn't think about, you know, if you were with a name group, you obviously made more, you know, but just the kind of gigs that were happening all the time, you know, that was the $25, and then it kind of bumped up. After a while, it got to be $40, and after a while, it got to be $50, and you know, but it was not like it was mostly cash gigs.
Mm-hmm. I remember Mike always talking about. I think he came early '60s too, and I drove him down to the big band rehearsal a lot of times. I don't know if you know that, but I picked him up with the music, put the music in my car, drove him down. I mean, would be Bob Magnuson did it for a while, and then Lee Green, but then I was doing it at least for, I would say 15, well, I don't know, 2011, 12, probably 10 plus years. But we were talking a lot in the car. I loved going down to the Baha'i Center and to the Union for rehearsal with Mike. I mean, we would always talk. But he said one thing, he said it several times. He's like, and I know he was trying to figure it out. He's like, I don't really get that. When I came to New York, the gigs paid $100 and they still pay $100. Well, he had these solo gigs. I mean, you may be in a section, but he had at Times Square, I think there was, I don't think I said the right name. I think it was the Metropole or something. There was this place where they had live music. That's where Dizzy saw him and asked him to join the band. There were 3 floors where they had music, you know, and he had a solo gig and duo gigs there. But he said that, you know, he would work there on a regular basis and they would pay $100, you know, for the, maybe, I don't know if it was different for a piano player, you know, but, you know, I mean, if you played a lot of big bands, I think, I don't know, you know, $25 for a big band. I mean, how many people were you in the band? That's still a lot of money back in the day. You know, if you talk about a 10-piece band or, you know, or maybe even more 16-piece band, you talk about, you know, several $100s for a gig in the city, you know. And
there were more larger groups in those days than there are now.
Yeah.
Nowadays it's, you know, quartets and trios and quintets because nobody wants to pay. And so if you're going to work, it's got to be with a small group.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, since I did get your emails, I know you did something recently, a couple of weeks ago, Band of Bones, or did you had a concert?
We did a birthday tribute to it. It was J.J. Johnson's 100th birthday.
Yeah. Wow.
We've been doing well, this is again thanks to Mike Longo.
Yeah.
One of the gigs that I did with Mike was for Dizzy's birthday. And
yes,
he had Jimmy Owens as a guest soloist. And then the music was all Dizzy, you know, the whole gig was Dizzy's music. And I had just barely started my Band of Bones at that time. And I said, damn, this is a good idea.
Yeah.
No, I don't even know when JJ's birthday is, but let me look it up, and then we'll see if we can do the same thing. And so then I asked Steve Teray to join us as a featured guest, like Jimmy Owens was with Mike, and the thing took off, and we've been doing it for like about maybe 13 or 14 years now. So anyway, that was our last gig, you know.
Yeah.
And we featured again Steve Teray and James Burton III, along with
great.
all of JJ's music, you know.
Oh, I like James. You know, I wasn't really familiar with him till I talked to Sam a year and a half ago. I think, you know, I tried to get this big band together for APAP, and he gave me Nick Grinder's name, and then from Nick Grinder, Jennifer Wharton, and I remembered Becca from way back, you know, and I don't know, just, you know, it was someone asked you to band together, and all your guys you usually know are not around, so you kind of scrambled. But James Burton was what a great trombone player. I mean, you know, it's really awesome. And I'm sometimes flabbergasted because I'm like, how come I don't met these guys earlier, you know? But I mean, it's still, although it's not the way it's used to be in New York, but I think there's still a lot of circles of musicians who share gigs and everything. So I don't know if you were already on the call here or the Zoom call, but although I'm here for 20 years, when I go home after a gig, I feel like I just arrived, you know. I'm like, it's still kind of like, I feel like I'm so new to this city. And especially if I run into a guy who's a great player, great person, everything, you know, and I'm like, how come I haven't heard about him? You know, but
well, you know,
it's a big city.
But for a bass player, you're always alone on a gig. There's one bass player, right? And if you've got a big band and the trombone, you know, or the trumpet or the saxophone, there's at least 2 or 3 or 4 others. And so then you not only play together, but you hang together and you get to know each other. And then somebody can't make a gig, so you call somebody as a sub, or they call you, and you get a little the community of horn players. It may be stronger than it is for the bass players because we play together a lot.
Yeah, bass players are team players, but they shuffle gigs around, and you know, I mean, they're a team player in different ways, you know, but not so much in presence, but you know,
but you don't really get a chance to hear each other play.
No,
you're there by yourself.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. Bands of Bones, you have because we always ran into the Union, right? We always saw each other. I saw you there for years, rehearsing before us, after us, and everything. And I think I just out of curiosity, I will have a question for you about the Union as well. But so you have every trombone player in the city in your book. If you have you have 10 trombones, right? Is it 10 or 8? 8.
The basic group is 8.
Okay.
Plus myself, you know, because I don't play in the section. I'll lead the group and take occasional solos, but it's so 2 bass trombones and 6 tenor trombones.
Wow.
And you know, the way things are, people are all busy. They got responsibilities. They got other gigs. So we need subs all the time.
Yeah.
And that's how you get a list, you know.
So how big is the list of trombone players? You have like a 60, 80, 100?
Oh, I mean, it's hard because I mean, I have a list, but some of the people maybe are from a few years ago and I haven't seen them in a while.
Yeah.
So you got a bunch. And you know, the thing is that there's at least 100 trombone players around the New York area that are really good. You know, that would be fine on any gig. And you know, you can't work with just the same few people all the time.
Yeah, that makes sense. But so when Sam was playing in your band, did you ever make comments about arrangement? Did you say, man, that's a great arrangement, I really like what you're doing here? I mean, did you talk music with him at all, like in terms of the workings of how a chart works and composition-wise, arranging-wise?
We talked about being a band leader a lot, because he never really put a band of his own together, because he saw what needs to be done, and all of the, you know, he said, I unless I can really do it right,
Mm-hmm.
what he meant was get all the right players and get all the right charts and work in all in all the right clubs, and all of those things don't always happen.
Yeah.
So when you're leading a group, there's a lot of times when you have to, you know, you have to adjust and go to plan B.
So what?
I always wish that he had his own group, because I would love to hear what, you know, when he put his own concept out there for a sound. I would like to hear what that is, because he was always playing in somebody else's band.
Yeah. Yeah, he was definitely in demand. You know, that coming back to that moment when he was so upset that he missed this email, that's what really surprised me. You know, that he put musicianship and music over everything. You know, and because he was so in demand. I mean, he was always working. He had always something. He was a mentor to many and passing on gigs and helping you. You know, and then, you know, as I said earlier, I don't know, I guess I'm repeating myself, but, you know, we all know the Baha'i Center is not the greatest paying gig in the world. But, you know, but it was for him musically such an important thing to be part of it. And that he put that as a priority to the point where he had to explain himself to Mike. It's like, look, if I would have gotten the email, you know, I would have done this, blah, 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 you know. I mean, it's just like, wow. I'm like, you know, in my mind, this guy has his priorities.
Right. Well, one of the things about the Baha'i Center is that it's one of the few places where it would be a jazz concert. Most of the other situations are in clubs where they're serving liquor and food, and the waiters are coming and going, and people are talking, and you know, and in the classical world, most of the performances are in a concert situation. And so the Baha'i Center was that for jazz groups. It was a place where people wanted to go to listen. You know, that they weren't going to hang out. They weren't going to have a few drinks with friends. They were just coming to listen to the music. And that vibe, you know, goes back and forth between the musicians and the audience. It's a special place.
Yeah, great. So when you talk to
Mike,
yeah,
you know,
yeah. So when you talk to Sam about being a band leader, is there anything? I mean, I know you talked about a couple of things, but is there like a specific moment you remember you were sharing information about what he was telling you, or what you were telling him, or some exchange?
Well, a lot of times you just have to go ahead and do the best you can, you know. And the hardest thing for me, because the group is a big group, you know. It's like 12 or 13 of us when you count everybody.
With the rhythm section, yeah.
Getting places to play, and the struggle of getting somebody to agree to book you, and then these days it's mostly just playing for the door, you know, and that becomes sometimes a negative feeling when you're trying to stay positive about the music.
Yeah.
You know, but I like I told you earlier, he always made me feel good about what I was doing. You know, whether it was my playing when I was on a gig with him, or whether it was, you know, talking about my group, you know, and he was a big time supporter. I mean,
yeah, he was really. I you know, I opened up the Zoom call with you know, with a little story how because Sam didn't talk a lot, so I was very kind of intimidated, you know, with the in Hampton Big Band, Mike's Big Band. And although, you know, we worked together, but, you know, we didn't really build a friendship. It took a couple of years, you know, quite some years. And but I do remember when, you know, when we became friends, you know, then he was very supportive. You know, he helped us. I brought up the Lionel Hampton Big Band, and you know, when we started the Lionel Hampton Big Band in 2015, again, Sam was very essential. You know, I knew him from the Longo Big Band, and you know, and we have a priority with the Lionhead Big Band where we get the players who played with him first, and then we move on to some people who, if they cannot do it, then we move on to some people who didn't play with him, but who we know from working together, But Sam was very supportive. And one thing I wanted to talk about, and I haven't, was we just came out of the pandemic, or about to. I remember we played a Zoom concert at the South Orange Performance Arts Center in 2021. I think 2020 got finally canceled, but then 2021 in April we did a concert in the South Orange Performance Arts Center with a film crew. And we did pretending that there was an audience. And I remember that I called Sam for that concert. And he was so happy. He's like, wow, that's great. I've been waiting for a gig and I'm so happy. I mean, he was reaching out to me. And I think, that was the year we got a Lifetime Achievement Award for the Grammy. I have to check the picture. I think Sam is on it because we took an outside picture. We spread out the band, and then Cliff Guyton, Lance, Brian, myself, and Jason Marsalis, we kind of holding the Grammy, and then the band was behind it. And I just know that Sam was so excited, and I was just like, wow. I mean, in my mind, I'm like, he's so happy to be playing again, and he was so... he was so appreciative to be on a bandstand and be with musicians. And he told me at least 2-3 times, I'm so happy you called me for this gig. And I was kind of like, not too many other of the guys in the band, I mean, they were all happy, I'm like, wow. I mean, it's the last guy I expected it from, and I'm so focused on the gig. I'm not always expecting, I mean, I'm happy we are playing, and you're not always expecting that everyone walks up to you and say they're so happy to play again, But out of all the people in the band, Sam was the one who called me once or twice after the gig, and then he called me before the gig, and he wanted to have the music. We posted that on our Lionel Hampton channel. We did, in a Hampton band, we only have 3 trombones versus 4 trombones.
Yeah.
So we did this song I wrote for Wally Gator Watson. Wally Gator, you probably remember him from back in the day.
I love Wally Gator. He was a dear friend. Yeah.
So I wrote the song for Wally Gator. Initially, I wrote it for the Lionel Hampton Big Band. We never played it till 10 years later, which is a whole different story. I don't going to get into detail. But so that arrangement has 4 trombones. So I said, so I sang it, and he called me back. He said, Christian, that there are 4 trombone charts. I said, yeah. I figured you just play the 3rd trombone for this concert. And he said, let me take a look at the 4th trombone part. So he actually took the 3rd and the 4th trombone and he put it together, just like what he do in the funk band. He would take a tenor part, he would take a trumpet part, and he would listen to the music, and he figured it all out, and he would go through the parts, and and I think that was one of his strong points. He could hear what the music needed, and he just played, and when I gave him the parts, I said, you okay? He said, well, yeah, I listened to it and I know what to do.
Right,
so
he has the mind of an arranger. And whether he's actually writing a chart or not, he's still got that mindset.
Yeah. And there's only a handful of musicians I know who can play and transpose in their mind. I mean, I never, maybe we will work more in the future, but we never played that much. I know I sub for a rehearsal or 2 with you, but Sam is one of the guys. He takes an alto saxophone part, he takes a tenor part, a trombone part. I mean, I think the trumpet and the tenor is probably way easier. I don't know about the tenor, but he transposes it right into. He looks at it and he plays it in his register. I mean, he's transposing on the spot. That's what I want to point out.
Yeah.
And there are not too many people I know who can do that. There's one guy in Los Angeles, great alto player by the name of Eric Marienthal, who can transpose right then and there, no matter what, in any key, but, and maybe you can do it too. I never, worked with you in that situation, but that really, I mean, you get a younger player, and also, did you go to, Sam went to Berkeley. Did you go to Berkeley? I don't know if you went to Berkeley. No.
No.
But I know that people coming out of a college, I mean, that's the school I went to. They don't, I mean, they're probably good readers, but I don't know too many who can transpose on the
Well,
spot.
there's a difference
just like
between
that.
reading and transposing,
Yeah.
And trombone players are asked to do that more often than you realize.
Yeah. Thank you for.
Trumpet players, they have to transpose from a C part, right? Because they're in B flat, but they generally aren't asked to play a saxophone part, or and the trombone players are often like an extra guy in the band. And so, we don't have a trombone part in this tune. Can you play a tenor sax part? And so that comes up every so often.
That's great. Yeah, see, I had no idea till I said earlier in the beginning, I watched Sam, I don't know. I'm a very good observer, especially if someone says, man, and I don't really know the person. I just pay attention to what they do. And, and I noticed that with Sam, because we were playing quite on a regular basis with a funk band and the big band. Of course, he was a big part of the big band, but I noticed that about him on the rehearsals. He's like, what's on your part? Let me get this one. He's just like, he had all the parts there and would figure out what works. And the other thing, we had this thing with Mike's big band where we came to a point, Mike had over 200 songs in the book. So every folder had 200 songs. Or the trumpet 1 to 4, the trombone.
Nobody wants to carry that around.
And I was a librarian. I was the one who had to carry the music all the time. I said, Mike, if you play only 15, 16 songs on the rehearsal or on the gig, why do we have to carry all this music? It became really, because it was a lot of stuff to carry. It's like, well, I don't know what to do. I need to know what to choose from, And I said, Mike, we pretty much, after a couple of years, I said, we pretty much, I'm not saying we're playing the same songs all the time, but there's a certain amount of songs we play a lot. And there's a lot of songs we don't play anymore, So I talked him into cataloging the big band library. And we did that the last couple of years, just before he passed, where he had a shelf and we had little cardboard boxes and every chart was in a box. And then we would pull the box for the rehearsal, and I would get the folders out and I put it in the folders, and it ended up in a very small, thing to carry along. What I didn't notice is like, when Mike was going through the list, he would still chalk off 40 songs he wanted to have for the rehearsal. And I said, Mike, the whole goal is that you think about it before what you want to play. It's like, well, I don't know, maybe I want to change it, So, but it still worked very well.
Yeah.
But
when you work with a trio, you can be more flexible.
Yeah.
Right. And you can change. Some trios don't even have arrangements.
Yeah.
They just say, well, we're going to play this song in this key, and then they play.
Yeah.
But when you have a big band, then you got all that paper to carry around.
Well, now we come to the first trombone book. I was leading up to Sam's trombone book. It was a mess. It was all single pages. He was the only one who knew how the book worked. So then in my mind, it has to be organized. So I tape all the pages together, right? I noticed after a rehearsal on a gig that the first trombone book, he took all the pages apart. I said, Sam, I just taped the pages. No, you don't have to understand. I have only, I like the single pages, and I move them over my stand. So I realized after the fact, and he was kind of laughing, and I tried to bring it up to him, but I realized he doesn't want his pages taped. He wants to have the pages so he can move them over his stand, and move them around.
Yeah,
but
everybody has their comfort zone about how to work.
I know, but it was funny because I found after the fact that's what he preferred. So then, but I had to tape all the pages first to find out not to tape the pages because he put them all apart. But he said, no, don't tape the pages, you know, that's all. I mean, it was not a big deal, but it was one of these situations where, you know, I got to know him, how his mind works and how he likes to work, you know.
I'll tell you a funny
That's kind
story.
of, go
You know,
ahead.
whenever you have a band with all these charts, you know, you have to be kind of organized.
Yeah.
And you know, figure out where everything goes. And I had Hendrik Merkens, the harmonica player.
Yeah, I know Hendrik.
They play a number of gigs with us, you know. And after doing the rehearsals and the gigs, he came up to me and he said, "Dave, are you sure you're not just a little bit German?" Because that was his way of saying that I was organized.
Yeah, I bet you are.
No, I'm
Chamberlain.
not.
No, but what's Chamberlain? You're probably Scottish, Irish, British?
I'm a real mixture.
Mixture.
I have two grandparents on my father's side who were from England, but they settled in Canada.
Oh, wow.
So they lived in Canada for like 5 generations. And my grandfather was the first one to come to the States.
Mm-hmm.
And then on my mother's side, my grandmother is from Serbia, and my grandfather was born here, but his mother's from Sweden.
Mm.
So I've got all of this different stuff going on. And as a result, I never really identified with any of those cultures.
Yeah.
You know, I know people who are like solidly Italian, or they're solidly Jewish, or they're solid, you know, and I don't have that, even though it's in my genes, you know.
Yeah. Well, I think Joe, thank you so much for coming by. Just maybe we talk about Mike for a little bit. We have Omera also here. She studied with Mike, and you know, usually we you know, Omera came a lot to the Baha'i Center, and was a big part of that fan audience we had there when we were playing. And yeah, so I mean, I keep inviting everyone for the next couple of years. You know, I think it's beautiful to you know, since Sam is not around anymore, I would just say, you know, Sam always showed up for these Zoom meetings. He loved it. You know, I have them posted on that little channel. I sent you a link later, and we always talked and shared stories. And she had some really beautiful things to talk about. And you know, so March 10th marks our last time we played with the 2020 is when we played with the Mike Longo New York State of the Art Ensemble at the Baha'i Center. And so Joe was playing with us with the funk band recently up at Peekskill, you know. So I don't know, let's talk about Mike for a minute if you guys want.
I'd like to hear what he was like as a teacher.
Oh boy. Yeah, well, he was amazing. I mean, he is a part of my daily life, really. I think about him all the time. 17 years. I mean, well, what Mike always would tell everyone, he was a very slow teacher. He would not give a student he had all these exercises based on rhythms and rhythmic behavior. And there was different levels to it. And there was a very high level to it. And he wouldn't pass a student on to the next level unless he felt that the student was ready for it. And that not only as a player, but sometimes, you know, we would talk about ego, you know, and we talk about some people would study with him and would stop study with him. And, you know, he talked about, in a spiritual sense, that if you adhere to the ego, it won't allow you to go to the next level, because his premise was that what he experienced with Dizzy was beyond ego. You have to give yourself up to a higher dimension, to a higher force, to a higher universe, to a higher rhythm. I mean, there are all kinds of words for it. And in order to get there, certain behavior patterns in your personality would block that in a way. So he was very keen in observing the student.
Did you play your
And-
own instrument, or did you play piano, or what?
I play piano. Yeah, I did he has a voice leading book. I did the voice leading book with him, and I played bass in the lesson. And I was fortunate enough, compared to piano players, I was able to play with him on every other lesson. We always played. He always wanted to check out where I was. You know, he said, "Let me say where you at." You know, and then he would play a song, and then he would say, "Pretty good," or he would say, "Well, I don't think your rhythm is very accurate." And then he would give me a little exercise. And there were two kinds of exercises. There was a little exercise just for that lesson to solve a certain thing he heard. And then there was these rhythmic exercises I worked earlier. I mentioned just before you asked me a question, you know, in the longer scheme of things, you know. But I did, as a player, my rhythm stuff, we worked on soloing, we worked on harmony. I did the voice leading book, which a lot of people like Ray Machika, he did the voice leading book. And Mike Campani, who plays a lot with you.
Yes,
he
my
did the
friend
wo-
Mike. Yeah.
Yeah, Mike is a great piano player. You know,
Yes.
he really knows the piano, and he did the voice leading book with Mike. And then he started, once he have the voice, when Omar studied the voice leading book with Mike too. And when you're done with the voice leading book, then you're moving on to learning songs. And that's when what you learned in the voice leading book, that's when you apply that to learning a song. So I did that, although not as much as I wanted to. Since I was playing with Mike in the trio and in the big band, we would always come back to bass lines. And Mike was a big inspiration for me to start studying with Ron Carter, which I did for 6 years. So yeah, it was this point in the lesson when we were playing, and then he stopped and he said, "Christian, you were just playing this bass line, and I had to sing in my lesson. I would break the melodic flow of my bass line." And Mike was very sensitive to that, because he knew everyone's bass line he played with. He said, "This is what Paul Chambers would play." Then he used his left hand and he played a Paul Chambers bass line. Then he said, "This is what either Ben Brown would play," or "This is what you know, Bob Cranshaw, and this is what Ron would play." You know, so he knew every bass player's style of bass lines. You know, so when I would break this melodic flow, it would break his flow in the piano solo, which bothered me, you know, because why is he stopping, you know? And I had met Ron back in college when I was living in Boston, and I was considering studying with him. That was many, many years ago. But Ron said, "If you study with me, you only study with me. You cannot have any other bass teachers next to me being a teacher." So when I was with Mike, and Mike knew Ron because Ron did the voice leading book with Mike as well. And when that was in the 80s. And so Ron took piano lessons from Mike for about a year and a half. And after he was done with the voice leading book, that's when Ron Carter started the Nonette, where he has the 4 cello players. So as a rhythm section, another bass player, he's playing the piccolo bass, and 4 cello players. And you can really tell when you listen to him next time he plays with that. When you listen to the cello, it's the most beautiful cello writing you will ever hear. And the voice leading is perfect. It's so beautiful. He has all these intros for the quartet, for the cello quartet, and all the voices just flow, and this really gorgeous harmony. So as far as I know, Ron started doing that after he finished the voice leading book with Mike. And
is this book available?
Yeah, it's online.
Published?
Yeah, Dottie is selling it. They're still doing it's on jazzbeat.com. It's I say I don't know what the title is, but I sent you a link.
Okay.
So it was then when I said to Mike, I said, maybe it's a good idea if I go and study with Ron. And he said, I think so. Mike was kind of funny. And so there was this period in my life from 2015 on to 2020, and then Mike passed until 2021. So I was for 5 years with 2 teachers, which was really tough at certain times, because my lesson with Mike was always on Fridays at 1 p.m. and my lesson with Ron was on Saturdays at 9, 10 a.m. and sometimes at noon. I mean, he had a pool of bass players who would come to his house. And then Mike always like, what are you doing with Ron this week? You know, and then he was always very curious to find out what I was doing with Ron. But it was a blessing looking back, although it was strenuous for me, especially when Ron wasn't going on tour and Mike wasn't touring that much anymore. So there was sometimes this weeks where for 4 or 5 or 6 weeks, I had them back to back before Ron would go. When Ron would go on tour or I would leave town, that would give me a break. Financially too, you know, so I was always, but I was too chicken to cancel the lessons. I know it was too important. Yeah, it was too important to go through with that. So I was very, you know, very disciplined. And then people like Sam and people who have this discipline, and you're probably one of them, as of what I can tell. And Ron was disciplined and Mike was disciplined. You know, I'm like, I'm not going to cancel a lesson. If I can do the lesson, I do the lesson. And I would stay sometimes up till 4 o'clock in the morning. I would do my stuff for Mike. And then I would just, you know, there were days where I played my bass for 4 to 6 hours in a row just to get ready for the next one. The thing with Ron, Mike was different sometimes because we had so many subjects. With Mike, I would do the voice leading book. I would do the bass lines. I would do sometimes I would bring an arrangement, and I work with Mike on big band arrangement, and then Mike has all these books, and we would work out of the books. So Mike was like a college, you know. He had all these different classes, so to speak, classes, you know, different topics you would work on. And although the last couple of year and a half we just did the rhythm stuff, he had, just before he passed, he had and he was in a hospital. He heard Moody. He heard some rhythmic ideas. He would write them down, and he's like, man, this is a new thing. Try this out. So he was really like on the peak of something new. And he would share that with, I think he shared it with me. And I think Frank Ponzio has a couple of stories too. And I have some stuff on my phone. I would always record my lessons.
He was very sick.
Even he was very sick. He's like, man, it's this new thing. And Moody was, you know, I don't know if it was a dream or he heard Moody talking to him, but I remember coming to his house. He was laying on I think Dottie was there too. He was on the couch and was coming out of I think he was already on dialysis, you know, and it's like, man, check this out, you know, and he was singing to me, and I have it. And, but Ron was very disciplined, you know. With Ron, you could not, being not prepared for a lesson, you know. My first lesson with Ron were not that great, you know. I mean, we are only with a few people here, but he would always say the first 3-4 lessons, 5 lessons, I think it took. He's like, Mr. Fabian, are you sure you want to come back next week? I said, yeah, I'm going to come back. I mean, I had to sing. I didn't want to. I'm like, well, he knows Mike, and I don't want to embarrass him. But there was something he wasn't happy with. And after 5 lessons, I finally figured that out. And then he sat me down, basically acknowledged, it's like, yeah, this is exactly what I'm looking for. And but so with Mike, you know, asking you know, after all those years, we had different topics. And Matt Snyder, who was here earlier, I'm really, you know, a little jealous because he's one of the 1 or 2 people who did a study with Mike, a counterpoint. Mike had this thing, a counterpoint book. Brandon, is it Brandon Counterpoint? I think he did with every, you know, you need to have a lot of discipline. And Matt is one of the few people who did the entire book with Mike. He went from the beginning to the end. And again, coming back to Mike is not a fast teacher. He's very slow. He's not moving on till they really have digested something. And there's a lot of people who came to Mike. They took a few lessons and left. You know, he's not everyone's teacher. And you took a lot of lessons. It's like I had a lot of teachers. You know, I mean, you learn something from everyone, that's for sure. But you know, if I have some young students come to me and he said, show me that thing Victor Wooten does, or they want to, you know, like the hardest thing, like right away, you know, you're like, well, how about I listen to you play for a little bit, see where you're at, you know, but Mike was, you know, he looked for a serious student. He wanted you also, just like Ron, that you commit to his lessons. He expected you to be prepared, and he expected you to show up on time, and there was some, expected things, and when you would do that, then he would open up. We talk about Dizzy. He talked about some stories. He would share some experiences. He would share how when he came to New York, he wasn't really ready for it. And I mean, he had all these things. He would really open up, and then once he saw that you put in 100% or 150%, then it was expected to have a mutual respect and that you were willing to do your work. So in a nutshell, so I mean, and then once I started playing in the big band, I love big band, and then open up the door to how does he arrange, like a lot of times I would come for a lesson and he said, Christian, I got some new shit for you. I'm like, what is it, Mike? It's like, come over here. And then he would go to the computer. I've been working on this new song. And then he would play it for you first. And then over the computer. And he's like, and then, man, that's great. And then he's like, well, and then he would open up about what I said to Matt earlier. He was really hard on the saxophones. I mean, he would write really hard saxophone charts. And then he would talk about, and then I see something, I look at the score, I might have a question. I was always surprised that, like for Mike, he writes out the entire bass part, except for the solo sections. I mean, everything is written.
Chord changes.
Not just chord changes, no. For the solos, yes, but he's very adamant about the bass part. And I ask him about, it's like, wow, the bass is very important. So, and that's something. That's why I put my puzzle piece together, because I learned that from Gary Burton when I was at Berklee College of Music. He said. And other people say that too, but Mike said it. So in that sense, I don't know how, when you learn something, you put things together because someone else had it years earlier to you, and you paid attention, and then, oh, that's makes sense, But the bass and the melody, just kind of carry the whole piece, It's like, it's kind of the, and I noticed that from that. Tony Barrero, trumpet player, lead trumpet player. Yeah. So he was, when I first joined the Lionel Hampton Big Band, the way they write those charts, it's like the lead trumpet and the bass, they do all the rhythm hits together. And he says, you're late. Oh, no, he said, you're early. You're early or something. I was not right with him, And that's when I realized, oh, I play the same rhythm than the lead trumpet player. I was so focused on the bass part, and then I was paying more attention, and then, but he was very hard on me, and which resulted in a whole nother thing. But when that was over, he came, and I think I starting with Mike, and then Tony came back to me, and it's like, I for sure see a lot of improvement in your playing, and I realized how things.
Well, Tony was very hard on other brass players too.
Yeah. When
he played in a section with him, it had to be his way. Everything had to be his way. And if it wasn't, sometimes you could anticipate what he wanted. It was always easier for me to follow Sam than it was for me to follow Tony Barrero.
Yeah, right.
And
sometimes
you didn't follow, and then Tony would rag all over you.
The brass sometimes, like Mike had, that's a type of writing. He has the trumpets and the bones sometimes do the same, like for a shout chorus or something. You do the same rhythm, and then I guess then the lead trumpet takes over because they're at the very top of the melody. Yeah, Tony is it's a whole different story. Yeah. Mike, Mike was a university in itself, so, and, Joe, you were playing with the funk band, you played a lot of you listened to Mike play. How did you know Mike? Did you guys get to? Can you hear me?
Can you hear me yet? You can't hear
Say
me?
what? I can hear you. Yeah.
Oh, you can hear me. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, of course I knew about Mike, and I certainly listened to a bunch of his stuff, and I have several of his books. But Bob Magnuson and I are really good friends,
Yeah.
and Bob asked me to do the tribute to Mike Longo with the funk band, and I said sure. I was honored to do it. It was a great experience. I mean, it's wonderful music, great charts, fabulous band. It was so much fun.
Yeah, that was a great gig. Yeah. How did you yeah, how did you get to know Mike, Dave? Just through the Baha'i Center, or you guys knew each other before that? Can you hear me, Dave?
Oh, yeah. It was
Did you
mainly-
did you
mainly
did you did,
through
did
Sam
you know
getting
Mike?
me into band.
Oh, great.
You know, and then once I started my own group, we played at the Baha'i Center. So then I was in touch with Mike in a whole different way.
Yeah.
You know, and he was very supportive about what we were doing with the band.
Mm.
And he always encouraged us to come back, and he, you know, never a problem getting a date from him, because he, you know, you could tell there were certain groups that he liked, and he would make sure that you know, were booked over there.
Yeah, and you brought a good audience too. I remember. I mean, I saw you guys a few times at the Baha'i Center, and it was always, you know, you have a great following with the
Well,
band of Bones.
you try, and then
Yeah.
sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Yeah. I was just thinking today, you know, I said it on the, I sent you the link with the previous Zoom calls, and Sam is talking quite a bit on those as well. But I just thought about today, you know, so March 10th, 2020, you know, I remember we rehearsed the day before at the Baha'i Center. We couldn't get the union for whatever reason, so we rehearsed at the Baha'i Center. And I just remember, you know, getting all the music out and everything. And you know, I saw Mike getting, you know, Mike couldn't really walk too long. He had to take always a break and sit down. But I remember him sitting in the lobby of the Baha'i Center, and I just parked the car and I was walking in, and he had this look on his face. He just looked at me, and it's like, I just, because usually would be inside with the band and hang out and talk and everything, you know, but that was one of those moments I kind of will never forget, you know. But I just thought about the lobby in the Baha'i Center and everything after all those years, you know. It was a great place, you know. It was great for us to play there.
That's right.
It was a great thing what Mike did to get us all together.
And,
yeah,
you know, then it's a whole
ahead.
other thing for him to get the schedule of bands together.
Yeah.
To make sure that he had a variety of different kind of groups.
Yeah.
And that everybody, you know, would show up and be on time, and, you know, and make sure that, you know, he gave equal time to different people.
Yeah.
And that's a whole other talent.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, well, anything else? Anyone? Thanks for coming, Dave.
Well, I'm
I
really
keep
happy
you.
I heard about it, you know.
Yeah, I'm so
thanks
happy.
again. Thanks again to Facebook.
I think Sam wanted you to be here. I think I put it together now. So
Oh, well, I wanted to be here for him. Yes.
don't you worry about the next times. I think you're part of the family now for sure. You know, I won't leave you out. You know.
Well,
I mean,
I played with the band many times, but
yeah.
I was never like one of the really regular people, you know.
Well, I tried to tag as many people as I could, and forgive me if I didn't tag you there. But anyway, I'm you know, thank you so much. And
Great.
thank
Thanks
you here
for putting it
for
together.
showing up. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
you know, just keep in your mind, March 10th. I'm gonna keep going, you know. So it's still many great stories to share, and I find it very inspiring too. I mean, for me, it's kind of like, you know, it's great to get together, you know. And
Yeah. And please send me the link. I'd like to
I
look
will.
at that voice leading book.
Okay, great. Sounds great.
Yeah.
The voice leading book, and I sent you the link to Jazz Tuesdays where we have the previous get-togethers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay. Joe, thank you so much. Yeah.
Good night.
God bless you
Good night.
guys. Good night.
Night.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.